There are no sponsors. The people who keep it going are those of us who watch it. It means taking a little money out of our pockets, but it's a small price to pay, really.
Welcome back to the next segment of our interview with Eric Margolis. He's the author of American Raj, which is about resolving the conflict between the West and the Muslim world. And he raises the question about the approach of the West's policy towards the Muslim world, which is liberation or domination. So, Eric, we were talking about you getting a 3 a.m. phone call. Barack Obama says, "What should I do?" In the earlier segment, you said, and we're hearing this now even from high British officials, people from, I'm not sure Karzai has said it directly, but I think people close to him have. There's going to have to be some kind of negotiation with the Taliban. So what is that? What do you think the negotiation could be? What might it look like?
Well, they're real and fake negotiations. Right now, they're aiming for fake negotiations, which means trying to split Taliban by drawing it into into negotiations and hoping it'll split into two factions. If they're real negotiations,
but why is that fake? I mean, well, isn't there factions within?
That's aimed at perpetuating the U.S.-led occupation by undermining Taliban resistance forces. And it's not just Taliban. They have many allies. They have non-religious groups who are fighting with them. So nationalist forces, as I call them. I call them the resistance. We're not allowed to use that word, but it's the right word. But what the U.S. should do in this case is to declare a ceasefire, stop bombing villages, and to declare a conference of Afghan factions to bring them in and discuss what is the future of Afghanistan going to be.
And in terms of how do you resolve the issue in what's called bringing Taliban into the process and negotiating with the Taliban? The cities really don't want to live under Sharia law, and it certainly goes to the core of what the Taliban wants for Afghanistan.
Well, the old pre-1979 Afghanistan, a tiny portion of the population lived in the cities, and they were more educated and Western looking. Most of the people lived in the country. The solution to Afghanistan's problems is, first of all, Afghanistan never had a central government, or never had a national government, let me put it that way. You had the pretense of one, you had a king, you had a prime minister, but they ruled nothing. They just ruled Kabul. So we should go back.
But just so for people who don't know, Kabul was an increasingly modern, urbanized center.
It was, but Kabul was Kabul. The rest of it had nothing to do with the rest of the country. So very little to do. Its writ did not extend beyond city limits any more than it does right now. But Afghanistan was ruled by its tribal people in very distinct, well-defined areas. The Pashtuns, who are half the population, ruled the south. The Uzbeks and the Tajiks ruled the north. The Hazaras were somewhere off there on the side. And they were self-ruling, really almost autonomous areas. And like the Kurds are today in Iraq. And that is the model that we should go back to, leap back into the past for Afghanistan. The Afghans like that situation. We mustn't impose central government on them when they don't want it. That's what we've been trying to do. There'll never be agreements on a central government, or it'll be very difficult.
But isn't part of the problem so much, like all the natural course of history of Afghanistan has been so diverted by foreign forces? I mean, most people I met in Afghanistan thought the Taliban themselves never really would have been a force without the support of Pakistan. The kind of growth of the cities and the kind of natural course of human society. Cities usually emerge, urbanization becomes stronger, and the urban, more sophisticated centers start to spread their influence over the countryside. You know, the war against the Russians reversed that. The countryside got all these weapons and money, and of course the Russian invasion also had its own perverse effects. So if you know, just my own experience there was, it's not like Afghans want to live in medievalism.
Well, some do.
Some do.
The Pashtuns in the south, in the hills, and the mountaineers.
But you wouldn't, not in Kandahar.
But Kandahar is the exception. Talk about the rest of the countryside. They want it. They enjoy that life. They like living that way. They're happy to be Pashtuns, wild and woolly guys. And
I'm not so sure about the wild and woolly girls like it so much.
Well, that's another whole issue. We don't fight wars to be social workers. You know, Robespierre put it very well. He said, all the world hates armed missionaries. And it's not our role to go forcing another people across the world to change their social
No, I agree with
customs.
that concept, but what I'm getting at, when you've already had decades of foreign intervention, and you have a country that's been so destroyed through, from the Russians to the Americans to the role of the Pakistanis and others as well, it's not such a simple equation. If your starting point is what's good for the Afghan people, if your starting point is just purely national interest of the United States or Canada or France or England, yeah, maybe the issue is just get out. But what I'm saying is, doesn't the West owe Afghanistan something? The people of Afghanistan.
The best thing we can do for the Afghan people is to stop bombing their villages and stop waging war and blasting with artillery and cluster munitions, and stop arresting and torturing people, which we're doing in ways that are almost as bad. Stop dealing as allies with the Afghan communists. Stop dealing with a government that's become the world's biggest drug dealer. This is not doing any favor to the Afghan people.
And I think the Afghan people would agree with you. I mean, all the Afghans we've interviewed, Afghan journalists, they all say exactly what you just said.
I don't know what all the answers are, but I know that what we're doing is wrong, and we've got to stop and start doing other things. Back out of Afghanistan gradually, bring in troops from the Arab League, bring in the Turks to manage things. I don't know. There are other solutions, but we've got to stop the war there before it completely destroys Afghanistan and before it blows Pakistan apart.
If you'd like to know more of what Eric Margolis thinks, you want to read American Raj, and you can do that by donating to the Real News Network. Eric has generously contributed a bunch of copies of the book, but not a lot. So if you want American Raj, you'll have to donate very soon, or they'll have run out. Thank you very much for joining us, Eric.
Thank you, Paul.
And thank you for joining us. And very soon we will be doing some more interviews with Eric, exploring the rest of the book, which deals with other areas of the Middle East. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you, Paul.
There are times when reality just asserts itself, in spite of the haze created by television news and entertainment. Sometimes crisis rips a tear in the fabric of myth and propaganda. Now a profound economic crisis has ripped asunder the American dream itself. Millions of people losing jobs and homes. They lack proper health care and any real sense of security. Since 2001, workers' wages have fallen or remained stagnant, even though worker productivity has risen almost 33%. By 2006, the top 1% of households were receiving 23% of all pre-tax income, more than double what it was in the 1970s. It's the greatest concentration of income since 1928. As unemployment rises, we need to know why this crisis is happening and what we can do to defend ourselves. Why are wages so low? Why is the society so laden with debt? Is it in ordinary Americans' interest to have a $1 trillion military budget to project power across the globe? Corporate television news won't ask these questions, let alone try to find answers. Only a truly independent news network can tackle these questions with courage and with ordinary people's interests in mind. We need a news network that's independent of corporations, governments, and political parties. We need the real news. But there won't be a real news network unless we raise substantial funds right away. The current financial crisis has hit our funding hard. Together, we do have the power to turn it around. There are already hundreds of thousands of people watching the Real News every month. If everyone pitches in, we can build an internet and cable television network that will change the face of media forever. You can organize house parties, talk to friends at school and at work, send email blasts and spread the word. Distribute this video to everyone you know. Pick up the phone and call a few friends and suggest they visit therealnews.com. Invest just 10 minutes a day to ask friends and colleagues to join the campaign to create a truly independent source of internet and television news. Together, we can build this network. Just 50,000 people at $10 a month gets us to our first level of sustainability. You can help us reach this goal, and when we do, we'll move to television in millions of homes across North America. Help us reach an audience in the millions. Please contribute generously, spread the word, Let's make the Real News television network a reality.
Your tax-deductible donation makes it possible. Please contribute at therealnews.com.